All right. Hey, class, how's it going? So here we are, Unit 13. I'd like to spend a few minutes just giving you a little introduction to the unit and give you just a little bit of background information. So, some of this background information, we're moving into what's called the High Renaissance. And the High Renaissance is a fascinating period. This is Michelangelo, Sistine Chapel, the St. Peter's Basilica will be built. We've got Raphael and the School of Athens picture in the Vatican. Lots of really impressive art. But this really impressive art comes with some social complexities that are going to be lingering in the background that are really going to fuel what's coming next. So by the end of this unit, we're going to be working into the 1500s. And by the end of the 1500s, as you probably well know, we are also overlapping with the development of the printing press and with the Protestant Reformation. There's about to be a lot of social change in Europe after this medieval period of stagnation. So, I want to just kind of review why, from the fall of Rome till now, what's going to be happening right now. I mean, we know about the Renaissance as we've been studying, but what's going to happen right now that's going to start to really fuel this change. And so that's really what this is about. Well, this particular unit's really about the art of the High Renaissance, but I want to just take a step back and look at sort of some structural stuff, what's coming. So early in the reading, as I'm sure you probably picked up on, Rome was in basically complete ruin. Rome used to be a city of about 1 million people. And by this time in the early 1400s, the population of Rome had gone all the way down to 20,000. And that was even small by Italian city states of that time period. The power structures for even the Italian city states had moved away from Rome. Venice and Florence and many of the other cities had much more healthy economies and more trade going on. And so remember back here, we know that Constantinople is going to get taken over by the Ottomans. And as soon as they get taken over by the Ottomans, or as that transition is starting to occur, there's going to be that backflow of people heading to Rome, along with the existence of, kind of the Western church in Rome, or that, compared to the church in Constantinople, even though they're both early sects of Christianity. There's going to be a return of power to Rome as is sort of the center of the church, or at least the Western church. And as this starts to happen, people are going to say, "Hey, Rome. Why is Rome in ruins? Let's do something about that." And so there's a major undertaking to make Rome equivalent to some of these other cities that at this point are some of the most incredible cities in Europe at this time period. And so there's going to be a real desire to make the same type of improvements and build cathedrals and to basically modernize Rome out of ruins. And so that's going to be the focus of looking at, or this unit will illustrate the byproducts of that. So really fascinating to watch. Some beautiful things coming out of this period in terms of music and architecture and painting and cathedral building. So one question that I get a lot is, why does this period have such a focus and so much money spent on nudes and art and music? And it comes down to this one basic principle, and it's a philosophical idea. Now, we know that at this time period, especially within the church, there's a great desire to sort of share with people this idea of God's eternal love. And they're constantly trying to communicate that, and God's beauty. And we see this in the creation of these very divine spaces in the cathedrals that we've been talking about. But philosophers and painters at the time, where painters were philosophers, you could say, and architects were philosophers at the time, everything they did, they wanted their creations to sort of point to or highlight or emphasize this pure notion of love, God's love. And they came to the realization that there was this, or they created this sort of idea of flow. And this flow, they believe, would often, or in many cases, could start at this concept of lust. And so this isn't the only reason for nudes, but this definitely is a pretty key component. Is it by putting in nude and oftentimes seductive women in seductive poses, they could create this concept of lust within the eye of the viewer. And then as that lust turns into the appreciation of beauty, it eventually will turn into this notion of love. And that this love should be this pure form of love. And so it's kind of interesting, but this is one of the components, one of the more commonly held notions of why there's these so many nudes simply in this high Renaissance art. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about here, and sort of the last thing for this introductory video, is talking about the power of the church. So we know the power of the church and this notion of divine right or political rule are tightly connected. They kind of come as one package during the medieval period. And this is going to start to cause some problems. There are some political and religious schisms starting to occur throughout medieval Europe, and they're going to center significantly around this concept of an indulgence. And so the indulgence is the ability to pay your way out of sin, most simply. And so basically, you pay for sin. So let's say your grandfather, maybe he was a bit of a prick and he maybe wasn't the best guy. And so grandpa dies and you're like, oh man, grandpa might be going to hell. Oh, not good. And so you want to fix this, the sins that grandpa committed. Well, you could pay the church through an indulgence. And this indulgence would basically buy grandpa into heaven. And the indulgences became quite widespread during the time, interestingly, when the church was running out of money because they were rebuilding Rome. Now, rebuilding of Rome wasn't the only cause of financial trouble for the Catholic Church at this time period, but rebuilding of Rome was very expensive and it took a lot of money. I mean, if you look at St. Peter's Basilica and the movies that you're going to watch, you'll see that that's not a cheap undertaking. And the painting and the building of the Sistine Chapel and all of these other things cost a lot of money. And so indulgences were one way the church was looking to fund some of these construction and artistic endeavors that they had. Now, what this would eventually lead to are a few things. And it's not just the indulgences, but when we get to Martin Luther is going to become the father of the Protestant Reformation. And he is a Catholic clergyman who doesn't believe that the church should be collecting indulgences, that the church should allow people to pay for sin. Now, it's, again, anytime in history, there's never one reason, or very rarely is there one reason why something happens. But the Protestant Reformation is going to decentralize the power of the church. Now, part of this is going to occur because of the printing press, which we'll get to in the next unit. The printing press is also going to decentralize the power of the church because we're going to have individual literacy. Well, we're going to have literacy rates increasing with development of the printing press, but we're also going to see the printing of Bibles and people individually reading Bibles, which will start to threaten the power of the church. And Martin Luther will basically be a rebel who is chased for a long time. We also, though, have, because of, and not necessarily because of indulgences, but at the same time, the church has this rebirth. We know that's the term for the Renaissance is rebirth of ancient knowledge, primarily Greek and Roman. And I'm going to say Greek here, a little knowledge. But what this is going to lead to is, oh yeah, I was going to put Greek here, is that this is going to lead us back to this concept of democracy, especially as divine right is starting to fall apart. People are saying, well, if God isn't choosing our leaders, who's going to? And well, the people are going to choose the leaders. And the other thing that's going to happen is this rebirth of ancient knowledge, which you could see if you were looking at that school of Athens and Plato and Aristotle, and the two philosophical differences that they have and what they're interested in. We're going to see a more scientific way of looking at the world. And all of this is going to come together at the exact same time that we discover the New World and we start setting up colonies in the New World. And so this is going to, when I say the exact same time, I mean, a century plus here, 100 years plus. But this is going to change Europe massively. And it all is connected together. And when we look at the High Renaissance, we are looking at the art that is the end of, truly the end of this medieval Renaissance period as we move into this new world, new worlds, I should say. Protestant Reformation, the Scientific Revolution, the birth of democracy, uh, all sorts of things. French Revolution, the American Revolution, they're all on the doorstep. And I would argue, as I think many people will argue, it's very much a byproduct of the Renaissance and the birth of this ancient knowledge. So that's our direction. That's our unit. Let me know, as always, if you have any questions. And I hope you enjoy this week's material. There's some truly fascinating and beautiful components to the High Renaissance.